The Galactic Empire was a force of nature, an unstoppable entity that had expanded across the stars for millennia. Entire species had been subjugated, their cultures erased and rewritten to serve the will of the Emperor. Planets that resisted were turned to dust. Their civilizations made footnotes in history. No one defied the Empire and lived to tell the tale. No one, except Earth. At first, the Empire had barely noticed a small blue planet on the fringes of the Orion Arm. It had no interstellar fleets, no planetary defenses, no empire of its own. Compared to the titanic war machines of the Imperial Armada, Earth was an insignificant speck in the void. And yet, it had defied them. When the Empire first made contact, it extended an offer: join us or be conquered. Other worlds had accepted, seeing the futility of resistance. But Earth laughed. The leaders refused, mocking the Empire's demand. When warships arrived in orbit, humanity fought back, not with superior firepower, but with sheer, brutal ingenuity. They turned their own environment into a weapon, launching devastating counterattacks with a ferocity unseen in the Empire's conquests. Infiltrators sent to sabotage Earth's government simply disappeared. Imperial soldiers sent to crush the planet found themselves bogged down in an endless war of attrition. Even biological warfare had failed. Humanity's ability to adapt and endure had surpassed anything the Empire had faced before. It wasn't just Earth's technology, or even its willpower. It was its people. Unlike other civilizations that crumbled when their leaders were removed, Earth had something else. Something far worse. Legends. The Empire had encountered them in intercepted transmissions, whispered in fear among Earth's own warlords. Warriors who fought with supernatural precision, who could not be stopped, who refused to die. They had names that echoed in the underworld, figures of such relentless violence that they had become more than men. And among them, one name stood above all: John Wick. The Empire's intelligence agents had scoured the planet's digital archives, searching for any clue about this man. The results were terrifying. He was a phantom, a nightmare that once belonged to the world's criminal underbelly before he emerged onto the battlefield. His skills were inhuman, a master of every known form of combat, a marksman whose aim defied probability, and a warrior whose sheer presence sent his enemies into a panic. They found records of entire organizations that had tried to kill him, and failed. Mercenary groups, syndicates, even highly trained military units had all been wiped out by this single man. At first, the Emperor dismissed it as mythology, human exaggeration. But then, an elite strike force sent to capture him never returned. And when their ship's black box was recovered, all it contained was a single image, a lone man standing among a field of bodies. This was no myth. This was a problem. The Emperor did not tolerate problems. And so, he summoned the Shadow Fang, an elite squad of assassins feared across the galaxy. Each of them was a living weapon, having slain kings, warlords, and entire planetary rulers without leaving a trace. Some could kill with their bare hands. Others wielded weapons that bent the laws of physics. No target had ever survived their hunt. Their orders were simple: land on Earth, find John Wick, erase him from existence. The hunt had begun. The Shadow Fang descended upon Earth like ghosts. Their vessel, a sleek black phantom of imperial design, slipped through Earth's primitive defense systems unnoticed. No alarms blared, no satellites tracked their approach. The cloaking technology they wielded was centuries ahead of anything humanity had developed, making them undetectable to even the most advanced military radars. They did not land in a populated city. That would be reckless. Instead, they chose a remote forest, a stretch of dark, endless trees far removed from civilization. The perfect hunting ground. Inside the ship, Commander Virax, the leader of the Shadow Fang, stood before his squad. He was a towering figure, his reptilian frame draped in sleek, adaptive armor that blended into his surroundings. His cold, yellow eyes scanned his team. These were the Empire's most lethal assassins: Nissa the Shade, a master of stealth and silent kills; Drekthol the Wraith, a cybernetic killer with speed faster than the human eye could follow; Corin the Executioner, a brute of terrifying strength; and Esivinek the Phantom, a sniper who could kill from miles away with a single impossible shot. "We have one target," Virax growled, his voice like grinding stone. A holographic image of John Wick appeared before them, flickering in the dim light. A simple-looking human, unremarkable in stature. But the records told a different story. This man has eliminated every assassin sent after him. He has no known weaknesses, no fear, no hesitation. Do not underestimate him. Nissa scoffed. He's just a human. We've taken down warlords, prime ministers, even entire species. What makes him special? V.A. Rax narrowed his eyes. Because the Empire fears him. That silence them. Split up, the commander ordered. We move in silence. We stalk him. We corner him. And when the moment is right, we strike. With that, the Shadow Fang activated their personal cloaking devices and vanished into the night. The hunt begins. John Wick stood alone in the darkness. The cabin he resided in was isolated, deep in the heart of the forest. There was nothing remarkable about it, a modest structure, worn by time. To any outsider, it looked abandoned. But to John Wick, this was home. He had sensed them the moment they arrived. The subtle shift in the air, the distant sound of something unnatural moving through the trees. He had been hunted before, but this felt different, more methodical, more precise. They weren't here to fight. They were here to kill. John moved with quiet efficiency, retrieving his weapons with the practiced grace of a man who had done this 1,000 times before. A customized Benelli M4 shotgun, a pair of Glock 34 pistols, a sleek AR-15 carbine, and, of course, a handful of knives. As he loaded his weapons, he felt it again. Movement. They were close. John took a slow breath. Then, he disappeared into the shadows of the forest. Shadow in the trees. Nissa the Shade moved like a whisper, her cloaking field rendering her nearly invisible. She prided herself on being able to kill without ever being seen. This target was no different. She saw the cabin ahead. No lights. No movement. "He's inside," she whispered through her comms. "Then eliminate him," V.A. Rax ordered. Nissa smirked and drew her blade, a serrated, vibro knife designed to cut through even the thickest armor. She approached the cabin's entrance, pressed the device against the wooden door, and triggered it. A silent pulse rippled through the structure, scanning for life forms. Nothing. Nissa frowned. That was the last thought she had before a hand clamped around her throat. She barely had time to react before she was slammed into a tree with bone-shattering force. The cloaking field flickered, revealing John Wick's cold, unforgiving eyes. Nissa slashed at him, her blade flashing in the moonlight. But Wick was faster. He caught her wrist, twisted, and snapped the bone with a sickening crack. The knife fell. She opened her mouth to scream. Bang! A single shot to the skull. Nissa the Shade was no more. The pack strikes back. The gunshot echoed through the trees. "He's engaged!" SIV the Phantom reported, immediately scanning for Wick's position. His sniper rifle, enhanced with thermal optics, swept the area. Nothing. Drekthol, the cybernetic speedster, activated his thrusters and launched forward, a blur of motion as he sprinted toward the sound. "I see him!" Corin roared, his massive frame charging through the underbrush. "His right!" Bang! 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 3 perfectly placed shots struck Corin's armor, denting the advance plating. He growled, enraged, and kept moving. Then Wick appeared right in front of him. Before Corin could react, Wick slid beneath him, planting a knife into his knee, twisting it with surgical precision. The massive alien bellowed in pain, stumbling forward. Wick used that moment to flip over his back, draw his pistol, and bang! A shot through the base of the skull. Corin the Executioner collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. Drekthol roared in fury, closing the distance. His enhanced speed made him nearly untouchable, his claws slashing through the air. Wick dropped low, dodging the first strike, then sidestepped the second. He fired his gun, but Drekthol moved too fast. The bullets grazed him, but he kept coming. John Wick did something unexpected. He holstered his gun. Drekthol lunged. Wick caught him midair, using his momentum against him. He redirected the assassin's speed into a brutal spine-breaking throw, slamming him into the ground so hard that his cybernetics sparked and failed. Before Drekthol could move, Wick's knife was already in his throat. A twist, a pull, silence, the last stand. V.A. Rax and SIV were the only ones left. "This is impossible," SIV whispered. His sniper scope frantically scanned the battlefield, but Wick was nowhere to be seen. Then the radio crackled. A voice. His voice. If you come for me, I will come for you. A shadow moved behind SIV. He turned. A blade slid across his throat. Rax, watching from a distance, took a step back. He had led assassinations across the galaxy. He had never failed a mission. But now, as he stood alone in the dark woods of Earth, he felt something new. Fear. Then he heard the sound of a gun cocking behind him. John Wick's voice was calm, almost bored. You should have sent more. Bang! The hunt was over. Commander Rax had fought in 100 wars. He had assassinated planetary rulers, executed rogue generals, and silenced entire civilizations. He had never known fear. Until now. The mission was simple: eliminate one human, one lone target. And yet, his entire squad was gone. Nissa, Corin, Drektho, SIV, dead. All of them, some of the most feared assassins in the galaxy, slaughtered in minutes. Rax stood in the silent forest, his massive reptilian form perfectly still. His camouflaged armor shimmered, blending into the environment, but he knew it wouldn't matter. Not anymore, because John Wick was hunting him now. A bead of cold sweat formed beneath his helmet. His advanced HUD scanned the battlefield, but all it registered were bodies, his men, lying lifeless in the date. How? How had a single human done this? Rax clenched his fists, forcing himself to focus. He was not like his subordinates. He was the Emperor's right hand, a living weapon honed over decades of bloodshed. His armor was near impenetrable. His plasma blade could carve through starship hulls. His reflexes were enhanced by cybernetic augments that made him faster, stronger, better than any living thing in this galaxy. And yet, something primal gnawed at his mind, a feeling he hadn't experienced since his first kill as a hatchling. Dread. He tapped the comlink on his wrist, activating the emergency recall sequence. His ship, still cloaked in orbit, would receive the signal and descend for extraction. He just had to survive until then. But deep down, he already knew the truth. He was not leaving this planet alive. The shadows whisper his name. The forest was too quiet. That was the worst part. In every battle, every war Rax had fought, there was always noise, screams, explosions, the clash of steel, the hum of energy weapons. But here? Nothing. Just silence. His vision darted left and right, scanning for movement. His claws gripped his plasma blade, its violet glow casting eerie light onto the trees. And then he heard it. A whisper, not in his language, not in any known dialect of the Empire. It was human speech. A single name, over and over. It came from the wind, from the shadows, from nowhere and everywhere at once. Baba Yaga. Rax's cold blood ran colder. He knows I'm afraid. He turned sharply, plasma blade ready. But there was no one there. His breath came faster now, a harsh rasp against his helmet's filtration system. The whisper came again. Baba Yaga. The old Earth term. The thing they called him. He had studied it before coming here, dismissing it as primitive superstition. Now, he understood. John Wick wasn't just a warrior. He wasn't just a man. He was a force of nature. And he was here. Death comes in the dark. Crunch. A sound behind him. A single step. Rax spun, swinging his plasma blade in a wide arc, but hit nothing. Then something moved, above him. Too late. Bang. 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 3 shots rang out. Each bullet found its mark. Rax staggered back, his armor absorbing most of the impact, but he still felt the force crack his ribs. Before he could recover, Wick was on him. The human moved like a ghost, his coat barely making a sound as he closed the distance. His gun flashed again. Rax dodged, barely, twisting his massive frame to the side. His plasma blade lashed out. Wick ducked, sidestepping the burning arc, then brought up his pistol and fired directly into Rax's knee. Crack! Pain exploded through Commander's leg as he dropped to one knee, snarling. He swung wildly, his enhanced strength splitting a nearby tree in half, but Wick was already gone, vanishing into the darkness like a wraith. Rax gritted his teeth. His playing with me. The thought enraged him. He was an executioner of the Emperor, a veteran of planetary purges. He would not be toyed with. With a snarl, he activated his thermal vision, switching through multiple spectrums. There, a figure, moving fast. V.A. Rax lunged, swinging his blade with enough force to bisect an armored soldier. He saw the strike connect, but Wick wasn't there. Just an afterimage, a flicker of movement one step ahead of him. Then, bang! The bullet tore through V.A. Rax's shoulder, causing his arm to go numb. His sword fell from his grasp. Bang! Bang! 2 more shots shattered his helmet, exposing his reptilian face to the cold air. Blood dripped from his mouth. He collapsed to one knee, gasping for breath. His enhanced biology was already trying to repair the damage, but he knew it wouldn't be fast enough. Not against this monster. He lifted his gaze. And there he was, John Wick, standing a few feet away, gun still aimed. Not breathing hard. Not afraid. Just watching. Studying him like a butcher observing a carcass before the final cut. V.A. Rax tried to speak, but all that came out was a strangled rasp. Wick slowly holstered his pistol. Then he drew a knife. Cold steel gleamed in the moonlight. V.A. Rax's breath hitched. He had seen many warriors kill before, but not like this. Not with this cold, surgical certainty. He understood now. The Empire had made a mistake. They thought they were sending hunters to kill a lone man, but they had sent prey into the lair of a beast. Wick stepped closer. His expression never changed. No anger, no joy, just inevitability. V.A. Rax's vision blurred. His body was failing. His ship was still minutes away. He would not live to see it land. Wick crouched before him, tilting his head slightly. His voice was quiet. "Tell your Emperor." V.A. Rax choked on blood. Wick's hand moved, swift, precise, final. The blade sliced across his throat. Silence. Then Wick stood and walked away. The hunt was over. The war had just begun. High above Earth, beyond the planet's atmosphere, the cloaked Imperial warship Vengeance Eternal hovered in silent orbit. It had been waiting for the Shadow Fang's mission to conclude, expecting their triumphant return with John Wick's head as a trophy. But the recall signal from Commander V.A. Rax had come too soon. Too desperate. And then, nothing. No more transmissions. No life signs. The entire elite assassin squad was gone. Admiral Rodvargo, a towering figure of pure, reptilian menace, stood at the bridge of the warship, his claws digging into the metal railing as he listened to the reports. His yellow eyes flickered with something between rage and disbelief. "This is unacceptable," he snarled, his voice echoing through the command deck. The bridge officers looked uneasy. Even among the Empire's warriors, the Shadow Fang were legends. If they had fallen, then the Admiral clenched his fists. "Scan the surface. I want every detail." Where was V.A. Rax's last position? A nearby officer hesitated, glancing at his console. "Sir, we've located the battlefield. There are no survivors." Vargo's sharp teeth bared. "And the target?" The officer swallowed hard. "Alive." Silence filled the bridge. The Admiral's claws screeched against the metal railing. He had overseen planetary purges, exterminated entire species, burned civilizations to ash, and now one human had defied the Empire. He took a slow breath, controlling his fury. "Prepare the orbital annihilation protocol," he ordered. "We will erase this man and his pathetic planet from existence." The storm arrives. Down on Earth, John Wick stood alone in the dark forest. The ground was soaked with the blood of his hunters. The wind carried the scent of death. And above him, the sky changed. Clouds twisted unnaturally. A deep hum resonated through the atmosphere, a terrible, alien sound that did not belong to this world. The air grew heavy, electric. John lifted his gaze. His expression remained unreadable, but his instinct screamed danger. The Empire was responding. A fiery scar split the heavens as something massive descended through the clouds, a warship dark and ominous, blocking out the stars. Wick knew what this meant. He had seen enough war to recognize total annihilation when it came knocking. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. This was an execution. The last stand. On board the Vengeance Eternal, Admiral Vargo raised his hand. "Target locked. Begin bombardment." Across the warship, Massive cannons adjusted their aim, their barrels glowing with terrifying energy. They weren't just going to kill John Wick. They were going to turn the entire region into glass. A second later, the first blast fired. A column of blinding light screamed down from the heavens, obliterating everything in its path. Trees exploded into ash, the earth shattered, and shockwaves rippled outward, flattening everything for miles. Silence. Smoke and fire filled the battlefield where John Wick had once stood. Vargol smirked. "It's done." Then something moved. The smoke shifted. The fire flickered, and a shadow walked through the flames. Vargol's smirk vanished. Impossible. John Wick emerged from the inferno, his chute scorched but intact, his body carrying fresh wounds but still moving. Still alive. The warship's cannons charged again. This time, Wick ran. Bullets wouldn't stop an orbital strike. Neither would knives. But there was always a way. He sprinted through the forest, dodging between the burning wreckage, calculating his next move. His eyes scanned the sky, and then he saw it. A wrecked Shadow Fang dropship, partially intact, buried beneath fallen trees. If it still had power, he slid down the wreckage, ripped open the hatch, and prayed that the flight system still functioned. His fingers moved swiftly, activating the ship's emergency launch sequence. Above, the Vengeance Eternal prepared to fire again. John didn't hesitate. He gripped the controls, punched the engine thrusters, and the dropship blasted off into the sky, infiltrating the Vengeance Eternal. Admiral Vargol watched as a single, battered Shadow Fang dropship raced upward, dodging the warship's cannon fire. His eyes narrowed. No, that's not possible. Yet, deep in his gut, he knew it was him. "Intercept that ship," he bellowed. Too late. The dropship barreled through the warship's hangar shields, slamming into the metallic floor with a violent skid. Sparks flew. Metal screeched. Smoke billowed from the wreckage. Silence followed. Then a figure stepped out. John Wick. He adjusted his chute, checked his ammo, and then he started killing. The fall of the Vengeance Eternal. Vargol's command deck erupted in chaos. Security alarms blared. Automated turrets engaged. Squads of Imperial soldiers, dozens of them, stormed the corridors, weapons drawn. Wick moved like a phantom. His pistols backed, each shot precise. Headshots, heart shots, kill shots. Soldiers fell like dominoes, their bodies piling up as he cut through them with brutal efficiency. A squad tried to flank him. Bad idea. Wick flipped over cover, twisted midair, and eliminated him before he even hit the ground. A soldier lunged with an energy blade. Wick disarmed him, reversed the weapon, and drove it through his skull. He moved like death incarnate, a blur of motion, unstoppable, inevitable. Vargol's confidence shattered. This wasn't a man. This was the end. "Seal the command deck," he roared, activating the emergency lockdown. Massive steel doors slammed shut, cutting off Wick's approach. Vargol turned to his officers. "Prepare the ship for a hyperspace jump." A soft ding interrupted him. The elevator at the far end of the command deck had just opened, and standing inside, calm as ever, was John Wick, gun in hand, expression cold. Vargol's blood froze. Bang! The first officer dropped. Panic erupted. The remaining crew scrambled for weapons, but it didn't matter. Wick moved before they could react, his pistol cutting down every last officer with surgical precision. Vargol roared and lunged, swinging a massive energy axe. Wick sidestepped, shot him twice in the gut. The Admiral staggered, dropping to his knees, clutching his bleeding stomach. John Wick stood over him. No words, no hesitation. Just a single, final shot. Bang! The Vengeance Eternal drifted lifelessly above Earth. The Empire had sent assassins, then soldiers, then a warship, and now it had nothing. John Wick stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the vastness of space. The Empire had come for him. Now, he was coming for them.